Chapter 123. Sword Chi Showdown. Boss. Sensing Shang Mingjia's anger, Jean DeBao teased Nie Tian to remind him not to be too arrogant. Shang Mingjie is one of the top 20 disciples in the inner court, far from being comparable to Liang Yufeng's generation. What worried Jean DeBao, even more, was that Shang Mingjie was already a member of Lan Binji. Nie Tian and Lan Binji were already incompatible. Under such circumstances, it was better not to provoke Lan Binji. What worried Jean DeBao, even more, was that Shang Mingjie's eldest brother, Shang Mingyu, was the most powerful person in the inner courtyard. Even if Nie Tian could beat Shang Mingjie, he would never be Shang Mingyu's opponent. Yes. Nie Tian completely ignored Jean DeBao's reminder, looked at Shang Mingjie, who was already furious, smiled lightly, and said, "Go ahead. If my guess is right, your sword energy was formed half a year ago. It so happens that I accidentally condensed sword energy last night. Let me see, whose sword energy is stronger?" "Boss, you have condensed sword energy." Jean DeBao was stunned by Nie Tian's words, and his fat face put on an extremely exaggerated shape. In Jean DeBao's eyes, Nie Tian's talent is needless to say. Not only is his talent in martial arts against the sky, but he is also an alchemist. It seems that he also knows a lot about spiritual materials. There is even some research on the spirit array. Now Nie Tian condensed his sword energy again. Now it's a decathlon. Others around looked at Nie Tian in surprise, with disbelief on their faces. Sword Chi, does that mean that it is condensed? So many fighters are hesitant to go all the way to the sword because the journey of the sword is too difficult and requires a lot of talent in the sword, which is not something ordinary people can expect. If the sword energy is so easy to condense, then everyone is a master of swordsmanship. Most people thought that Nie Tian must be lying, deliberately scaring Shang Mingjie, so the latter retreated. This kind of intimidation method is too childish, and Shang Mingjie is not a 3-year-old baby. You condensed the sword energy? Others didn't believe Nie Tian's words, but it didn't mean Shang Mingjie didn't believe it. He carefully sensed Nie Tian's breath, and he noticed a strong sword energy. It was condensed by accident. Nie Tian smiled lightly as if condensing sword energy was as simple as eating and drinking. His actions successfully angered Shang Mingjie's weak heart. Shang Mingjie thought that Nie Tian was insulting him, mocking his scumbag talent for swordsmanship. There is no need for Nie Tian to ridicule him, his talent is already scum. What a careless one, I'll come and see now, will you die by accident? Shang Mingjie roared angrily, and the long sword came out of its sheath clangingly behind him, and a sharp sword groan could almost pierce the eardrum. Your sword isn't good enough, you'd better use your Yuan Ling. Nie Tian smiled lightly, without any panic. He has long seen that Shang Mingjie's Yuan Ling is a sword spirit. Although the long sword on the back is good, it is already a second-level spiritual weapon, but it is far less powerful than Yuan Ling. Arrogance. Shang Mingjie was immediately annoyed, and he no longer held back any scruples. He struck out with his long sword, and the sharp sword energy pierced the air and suddenly attacked Nie Tian. The crowd around screamed and backed away again and again, for fear of being affected by the fish pond. Nie Tian was as motionless as a clock. He didn't even take out Jian Ju Tian Zhan, he just condensed his fingers into a sword, and suddenly a sword energy gushed out from his fingertips. Psst. The sword chi collided with the sword chi, and there was only a slight shattering sound. Everyone didn't know what happened, and the next moment followed. Dang! With a loud bang, the long sword in Shang Mingjie's hand trembled suddenly, and a strange force was transmitted to his wrist, causing a sudden pain in his jaw. Immediately, the long sword fell to the ground with a dang, and Shang Mingjie also received the strange force shock, take a few steps back, and even nearly fall. This is impossible. Shang Mingjie looked at Nie Tian angrily, completely unable to believe the scene in front of him. The other party is only at the 5th level of Yuan Ling. How could it be possible to force him into such a mess with just a touch of sword energy without even drawing a sword? Shang Mingjie was not the only one who couldn't figure it out. The eyes of people around looked at Nye Tian with surprise and shock, and at the same time, deep fear. Boss forced Shang Mingjie to retreat without showing his sword? Jean de Bao's throat gurgled, and his mouth opened so wide that he could almost stuff an egg. The difference between Shang Mingjie and Nye Tian is not the difference in cultivation, but the difference between the comprehension of the way of the sword and the difference in sword energy. Although Nye Tian's sword Dao realm is only the realm of sword energy, his sword Dao comprehension is at the peak monster level. Let alone an ant like Shang Mingjie, even the entire heavenly realm, there are very few people who can stand shoulder to shoulder with Nye Tian in the sword Dao realm, not much. Another point is that Shang Mingjie's sword energy is far from Nye Tian's sword energy. How can the sword energy condensed by the proud sword art and the sword energy produced by the original Starstone be comparable to the sword energy condensed by a high-level yellow rank sword art? I've said it before, your sword is too bad, you'd better use Yuan Ling. Nye Tian looked at Shang Mingjie, who was as shocked as a grasshopper, and smiled flatly. Shang Mingjie's sword is really bad. It's only a second-order spirit weapon, not as good as Nye Tian's sword Ju Tianjian's. Although Jin Ju Tianjian is far from being restored to the level of the previous 9th-level imperial weapon, it is already comparable to the 3rd-level spiritual weapon. If Nye Tian used his sword at this time, Shang Mingjie would already be a corpse. Shang Mingjie reacted, almost furious, and roared, "Little bastard, you asked for this." Shang Mingjie didn't know who Nye Tian was at all, but because the latter angered him, he directly moved to kill him. Shwa! With a roar, a blue long sword appeared behind Shang Mingjie, with a slight silver light, and the sword's light spread 3 feet away, making people palpitate. It's a sword spirit. Everyone gasped. Shang Mingjie is angry, and he is going to kill him. Everyone couldn't help backing back again and again. Nye Tian was also taken aback for a moment. He didn't expect Shang Mingjie to be so domineering, and he was murderous just like that. A swordsman with such a narrow mind is doomed to be unable to achieve the supreme way of the sword. Even if he can develop a sword heart in the future, his sword heart will inevitably be impure, and he will even be prone to madness. If you're so generous, I'll cripple your sword energy so that you won't hurt others in the future. Nye Tian said heavily, with an extremely domineering burst from between his brows. You're looking for death. Seeing that Nye Tian didn't take himself seriously, Shang Mingjie became even angrier, and the blue long sword behind his back flew across the air and landed in his hand. Jin Ju Tianjian also appeared in Nye Tian's hand. He didn't want to give Shang Mingjie any chance. Qinglian slash! Shang Mingjie yelled loudly, almost shouting out the eunuch's movement. His body strength exploded, and the cyan long sword was full of sword light, covering his body, with a length of 5 or 6 meters. The sword glow shook the sky, forming a frightening wave of swords in the air, tumbling toward him with killing intent. 300 billion sword shadows. Nye Tian didn't move but stabbed straight with his sword, and hundreds of flowing sword shadows appeared in the air, covering the sky and covering the earth. And just after all the sword shadows appeared, they condensed in the space in an instant, and turned into a huge Peiran sword shadow with a length of 10 meters, striking out violently, and blasting at Shang Mingjie.